Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling consciousness, and to really get into the nitty-gritty, we're turning to a fascinating conversation between a Vedanta scholar, Swami Sarvapriyananda, and an interviewer.
Oh, this one is a gem, really gets into the depths. They're looking at consciousness from all angles, modern science, ancient philosophy, the whole shebang.
Perfect for our deep dive, then.
Absolutely.
So, right off the bat, Swami Sarvapriyananda uses this analogy, a washerman using a diamond to scrub clothes, to illustrate how we're constantly using consciousness, but we don't truly appreciate its value.
It's such a powerful image. It really gets you thinking, doesn't it? It also sets the stage for the Vedanta perspective on consciousness.
Especially that Advaita Vedanta definition, right? Anadam Chaitanyam, not this, meaning it can't be reduced to just another experience.
Exactly. You've hit the nail on the head. It's not just another thing we encounter. It's something more fundamental.
And the interviewer doesn't let him off easy. He dives right into the different Vedanta schools, asking how the dualistic and non-dualistic traditions reconcile.
Well, it's a key question. They have different interpretations of consciousness. For this discussion, though, they focus on the Advaita perspective.
Which really allows for a deep dive into that non-dualistic nature of consciousness. And that leads to another important distinction: consciousness versus the mind.
A distinction that's often missed, especially in Western philosophy. But it's crucial in ancient Indian thought.
And, the interviewer brings up a point many people probably think about: neuroscience. How can we talk about a separate observing self when neuroscience links experiences, like taste or color, to specific brain activity?
It does seem like a challenge to the idea of a separate self.
It does. But Swami Sarvapriyananda has a pretty clever response.
Oh, I bet he does.
He points out that even when you lack an experience, like losing your sense of smell, that absence is still registered by consciousness. It's not just about what the brain is actively doing.
Interesting. So it suggests there's something more to consciousness than just brain activity.
Exactly. Which takes us straight into the heart of the hard problem of consciousness. That question of why we have subjective experiences at all. David Chalmers and many others have really wrestled with this one.
Oh, it's a question that's plagued philosophers and scientists for ages. And the interviewer even brings up some popular theories trying to crack this nut global workspace theory, integrated information theory.
But Swami Sarvapriyananda isn't convinced.
Rightly so, many would say.
He argues that they don't truly explain that leap from objective phenomena to subjective experience.
It's like they're missing a crucial step, right?
Right. And to explain that missing piece, he uses this fantastic analogy. He says it's like that miracle step in a PhD student's mathematical proof where they make a jump in logic without a solid explanation.
A perfect analogy. It highlights that these theories, while intriguing, still leave a gap in explaining how subjective experience arises. And this is where that Advaita Vedanta perspective really comes into its own, suggesting consciousness isn't just a product of the brain, but something more fundamental.
Something deeper, a foundation.
Exactly. And that leads us to the next big question, the one about consciousness and death. Do we just cease to exist? Do we go on?
Yeah, it's a question that's probably on everyone's mind at some point.
Most religions propose something surviving death, but the materialist view says it's lights out.
The end. Full stop.
But Swami Sarvapriyananda, he points out how we think about this is kind of funny.
Oh, how so?
We say the person is gone when the body dies, right? But while they're alive, we don't say they are the body.
It's true. We make a distinction while they're living, but then equate them with the body once it's gone.
Exactly. And this ties back to his point about consciousness. If it's not fully explained by the brain, could it be that it doesn't die with the body?
That it persists in some way, shape, or form. It's a possibility.
It is, and it opens a whole can of worms. What happens to it then? Does it just float around? The interviewer even asks if those Upanishadic traditions offer any clues about what's next.
And I bet that has everyone on the edge of their seats. But unfortunately, that's a question for another time, leaving us with a sense of mystery and a hunger for more.
It certainly does. And there's more to come. We're going to delve into mystical experiences, psychedelics, even AI. Can you believe it?
Buckle up, folks. We're just getting started. We left off talking about how even with AI advancing so rapidly, it still can't replicate consciousness.
It really highlights its uniqueness.
It does. And then the interviewer brings up this idea of rebirth.
Yes.
Which can be a tough concept to wrap your head around.
Especially when you think about, the possibility of being reborn as something like a cockroach.
Yeah, it does make you wonder how something as complex as consciousness could exist in, well, a cockroach.
But Swami Sarvapriyananda offers a really fascinating perspective.
Oh.
He says we often misunderstand the concept of rebirth.
How so?
He suggests it's not that we die and then become something else.
No.
It's more like our bodies die.
Right.
But consciousness, well, it persists in some way.
So it's not about starting from scratch as a new being, but more of a transformation of consciousness.
Precisely. He encourages us to see it as a journey, moving through different forms.
A cycle of sorts.
Yes, a cycle leading to spiritual evolution, as the Advaita Vedanta tradition describes it.
And the ultimate goal of that evolution, if I understand correctly, is to realize our true nature.
That's the idea. It's a pretty radical concept when you think about it.
It is. It challenges our whole understanding of life and death.
Exactly. It suggests this whole cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. It's like a story we've created.
A narrative.
Yes, a narrative we've constructed because we don't fully grasp the nature of reality.
It's mind-blowing when you put it that way.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It invites us to look beyond our limited perceptions and explore the deeper truths about ourselves and the universe.
So from this deep dive into consciousness, what are some key takeaways we can glean?
Well, for starters, it really reinforces the Advaita Vedanta view that consciousness isn't just something we experience. It's the very foundation of reality itself. Remember that analogy of the washerman using a diamond to scrub clothes?
Yes, such a powerful image.
It highlights how we often overlook the true value of consciousness.
We take it for granted.
We do. And another crucial point is that distinction between consciousness and mind.
Which, as you mentioned earlier, often gets blurred.
It does. But it's crucial for understanding the self.
So we need to remember that our thoughts, emotions, perceptions, all of that, they're objects of consciousness.
Not consciousness itself.
We are the experiencer, not the experience.
Precisely. And exploring the hard problem of consciousness really shines a light on the limits of our current scientific models.
They can map brain activity to specific experiences, but they struggle to explain the why of those experiences.
The subjective feeling, the qualia.
Exactly.
And that opens the door to the possibility that consciousness might be something more fundamental.
A building block of reality.
Precisely. Not just a byproduct of complex material processes.
And the discussion about death and rebirth, it really pushes us to consider that consciousness might exist beyond the physical body.
The Advaita perspective encourages us to view that journey through different life forms as a continuous evolution.
Not a series of endings.
Exactly. It's about moving towards a deeper understanding of our true nature.
Wow, this deep dive has been quite a journey.
It has. But with any exploration of consciousness, we're bound to encounter more questions than answers.
True.
But I think Swami Sarvapriyananda's insights provide a valuable framework for approaching this profound mystery.
I agree. It reminds us that understanding consciousness is a lifelong pursuit.
A journey of constant exploration, questioning, and reflection.
And as we move to the final part of our deep dive, let's see how these ancient insights might connect with your research.
Especially as you're looking at consciousness from both scientific and philosophical angles.
Right. How can these perspectives inform your work? What new questions do they spark for you? For example, we only briefly touched upon the idea of quantum mechanics in relation to consciousness.
There's so much more to uncover there.
There is. And that's where we'll pick up in part 3. We'll be exploring those fascinating connections between ancient wisdom and modern scientific inquiry.
Particularly those intriguing intersections between Eastern philosophy and quantum mechanics.
We've been on quite the journey, haven't we? Exploring consciousness from ancient philosophy to modern science. And now, as we wrap up, let's dive into something you might find particularly relevant to your research. Those connections between ancient wisdom and modern science, especially in fields like quantum mechanics.
It's a fascinating area where these seemingly different worlds start to, well, overlap, offering a richer understanding of this whole consciousness thing.
Remember how Swami Sarvapriyananda talked about physicists like Carlo Rovelli being drawn to ideas from ancient Indian philosophers like Nagarjuna?
Oh, absolutely. Rovelli, the quantum gravity guy, he's talked about how much resonates for him between some interpretations of quantum mechanics and the concepts Nagarjuna explored, like emptiness and interdependence, almost 2,000 years ago.
Amazing, right? These ancient ideas might actually help us understand cutting-edge science. It really makes you wonder if we're seeing a convergence of Eastern philosophy and modern physics.
It's a pretty compelling thought. Swami Sarvapriyananda even tells a story about talking with Brian Greene, the physicist and string theorist, who admitted there's a kind of poetic echo between those ancient Indian philosophical ideas and what modern science is finding.
Which brings us back to AI, and something we touched on earlier. Could AI's struggles to replicate consciousness actually be a clue to its true nature?
Ah, yes. If it's not just computation, as AI seems to suggest, then what is it?
Yeah.
Could it be, as Advaita Vedanta proposes, something fundamental to reality itself?
Big questions, definitely worth exploring further. And your
Yeah.
research, combining science and philosophy, you're in a great spot to contribute to that exploration.
Absolutely. As you delve deeper, consider checking out Nagarjuna's work, explore those intersections of Eastern philosophy and physics, really reflect on how these insights might inform your understanding of consciousness.
Who knows? Maybe in AI's limitations, we'll find the key to unlocking what consciousness truly is.
It's certainly a possibility, isn't it?
Well, it's been a real pleasure diving deep into this with you. Hopefully it's been insightful and maybe sparked some new ideas for your research.
Indeed. The journey of understanding consciousness, it's a never-ending one, full of questions and reflections, and maybe even a little awe at the mystery of it all.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.